Welcome to the Innovative Revenue Leader podcast. I'm your host, Seth Marrs. Join me as we deliver practical insights to help B2B CROs find new and innovative ways to grow in this fast-changing environment. The Innovative Revenue Leader is sponsored by Sandler, a Trilliad company, empowering sales professionals and leaders to master the craft of selling at all levels. Today's guest is a go-to-market strategist, execution leader, and revenue operator. She's led large-scale sales, go-to-market, and commercial operations across fast-growing enterprise organizations, and she is known for turning strategy into execution, aligning sales, marketing, and operations to drive productivity and growth in both big businesses and small. She's a trusted advisor, speaker, a thought leader. She helps teams modernize go-to-market execution through data, analytics, and AI-enabled approaches, and is the global evangelist go-to-market performance at Highspot. Laura Valerio, great to have you on.
Thank you very much, Seth. And what an introduction. I am really excited to be here with you today. And especially the theme of your podcast couldn't be more timely as go-to-market teams are rethinking how they drive performance in the AI world.
Yeah, it's crazy times and getting crazier. So let's jump in. Like the question that we're going to start doing on every show, we're going to ask all guests the same question.
Okay.
So what is the most innovative thing that you've seen in B2B right now? And I'll set the context for the audience just so they get a reason, like what we're asking. This is for if you're a B2B revenue leader and you're looking for things that are going to help you grow, that's what we're asking. That's what Laura is going to talk about here.
Very good and very good context. And while we were preparing for this session, like last week, I was thinking, what is the most innovative thing that I'm seeing in B2B right now? And it's not the tool. What I think is innovative is more of a redefinition of the seller role. From a seller operating AI tools to orchestrating AI intelligence. I have the fortune to be working with a lot of like forward-thinking companies, which realize something really important. Their sellers weren't struggling because they lacked data. They were struggling because they were overwhelmed by a lot of disconnected signals. And so instead of asking, how do I give my reps more AI, they started asking, how do we surround the seller with the intelligence that doesn't overwhelm them? And one of our customers at Spark is our annual conference. Last year, they presented their own approach, and they decided to surround the seller with domain-specific agents. One, for example, was focused on margins and deal economics. Another one was focusing on pipeline health and forecasting. Or another one was translating product updates into deal-ready messaging. All these agents were operating from the same trusted data foundation. And when this happens, the seller becomes the orchestrator. And so they spend less time in gathering information and more time in thinking critically and thinking about how do I move the deal forward. And so thinking about your question, the biggest shift for me has been moving from thinking about the seller as an operator of agents to an orchestrator of agents.
That it's so timely. And when you say operator of agents, that's kind of like what a company would do when they're just asking a seller to do the same thing as they've done before with technology they've given to a seller. The orchestration side is these tools, like people need to start looking. I'm seeing the same thing, and it's kind of that. It's good you bring that up because I think that's the limiter in a lot of companies is they don't see it. They see it as a tool working for the seller instead of the seller orchestrating around them. And you almost have to look at your sales world now, not as a bunch of just sellers, but sellers and agents making up your entire execution engine. Great, great, great. That makes a ton of sense. Okay, so you just talked about agents, and people throw this term around all the time. It's really hard to understand what it means because one vendor thinks it's like this agent that does everything, another one's talking about it on a very remedial task that's been around forever. What's your definition? Like, how do you define an agent?
And I think it's important to, yes, so I agree. There are so many definitions of agents. And I think for me, I wanted to ground the definition of agent in a go-to-market environment.
Okay.
And when I ground the agent in a go-to-market environment, I think of an agent as a digital program manager for your sellers. As you were saying before, the agent doesn't just wait for your input; it works towards an outcome. What an agent does, it analyze deal signals, it help you identify risk, it prioritizing the next best actions, and it helps the seller preparation in just in minutes and instead of hours. And I think from a CRO perspective, when we think about agents, the real value of introducing agent is about reducing execution variability. So it's not just about automation. That's what you have with the tools that you were describing before, right? What an agent allows a CRO to do or a seller to do, it ensures that the strategy shows up consistently in every deal. And that's where I think the real leverage of an agent is in a go-to-market environment.
Got it. So it's your guide to a certain degree, not and I think guide is the proper term if I understand the way you're saying it, not the person, because I hear a lot of people saying, I want this tool to tell the seller what to do every single step of the way. And it's like, well, if it does that, then why do you need a seller? But you're saying is a guide. This guide is going to
Yes.
proactively look for things and keep you on track in different areas and to let you be you, but also keep you in tune with what the strategy of the business, how you want to go to market.
And that's actually when you say the guide, or like, as I said, the example that I said before of an agent, of a seller that is at the center and it can use multiple agents, that's where the human ability of like the critical thinking, the strategizing on the deal become really important skill for the seller to develop. And what the agent helps you is also amplify these skills that are critical skills for the seller of today.
Makes total sense. So I think that's kind of something new too, is because people think of it as a task. It actually makes the seller better. It's not just making them more efficient.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's talk about the C-suite involvement. So there's a ton of talk around how much CROs are involved in AI initiatives. Are you seeing this engagement? And if you are, is it good? And if you're not, should it be more? Should they be more involved?
Um, you know what? If you asked me this question a year ago, I would have replied differently. Because up to a year ago, what I was seeing is that most executives were watching AI from the sidelines. They were letting teams experiment and waiting to see what the results that this AI could bring. That's changed. Today, when I talk to CROs or CEOs, they are pulling AI into the core of their execution strategy, and they're using it as a lever for productivity and predictability. If you think about we surveyed, it was at the end of last year, about 400 global go-to-market leaders. Only 10% of those leaders said that they were successful in driving their strategic initiatives at scale. And the gap there wasn't the ambition, it's the execution. So the strategies was very clear, but it was breaking in the field. And this is where AI becomes really powerful. Not as an automation, as we were saying, but if we embed AI, like if it becomes embedded guidance, if it helps us, for example, defining the priorities or if it helps us embedding standards into the daily workflow, this is when it becomes really the engine that helps our team to execute in a very consistent way. And I will tell you more. I was 2 weeks ago, as you know, I was at a customer SKO. And what was really interesting was that AI wasn't just in the breakout session. It was embedded in the CEO's keynote and all our leadership team up to the frontline team for the execution. So I think what I'm seeing today is a shift with AI that is moving from experimentation from the field to a core operating strategy.
Amazing. So it sounds like you're seeing from a executive involvement is helping the strategy more be very clearly defined all the way down to execution. And AI has the ability to be able to help with turning turning the strategy into execution. You kind of touched on this. Do CEOs get that? Or are they are they intervening? Because what I'm seeing in some cases is a CEO gets caught in a shiny object, and AI is like the biggest shiny object in history. So they think doing a chatting agent or seeing an agent talk to you is really important, but they don't necessarily understand the nuance of embedding these things in to get the execution you're talking about. So it seems like they're helping getting the strategy. Those people who really know how to execute, because they don't and shouldn't know how to execute, are they helping or hurting the execution?
They are actually helping. And you might, if I think about the key themes that are coming back today, and especially with leaders that really understand how the agent works, right? So the agent leaves it learns from data and then leaves into the data into context. And so the cleaner are the data, the better the agent works. And what I'm seeing is that what these leaders do, they go back into the foundation, they go back to the governance, and they allow the company, or they are working really hard to get that operational maturity, so that when you plug in the agent can really help you driving the productivity or the performance that you want to drive. So I see more and more leaders, they understand how the agent work, and they try to fix the fundamentals that help this agent really drive value and help the organization execute.
So they're intuitively being drawn into that base to be able to make it work the way that they want it to work, right? That
Yeah.
they need it to work. So when you deploy these, so you work in a lot of these situations with customers to help deploy these agents, like what's the biggest challenge that you run into in enterprise organizations when trying to deploy an agent to a go-to-market team or a sales team?
Actually, this is one of the questions that I'm hearing more and more. And the biggest challenge of deploying the agents isn't the agent or the technical implementation itself, is the data quality, as I said, and the clarity of the use case. Because as we said, the agents learn from data, they act on context. And if your data, for example, is fragmented, or the definitions are inconsistent, or the systems are disconnected, the agent doesn't become intelligent. It's actually very confused, and it becomes unreliable. And that's when you lose the trust of the field. But the other challenge that you see is a lack of focus. There are some companies that are trying to build agents for everyone. And if you build an agent for everyone, you build it for no one. So the real question, when these companies ask, can we deploy an agent? I want them to move to the other question, which is, what performance problem are we solving for here? And do we have the operational maturity to support it? And So you might ask me actually, do I need to get to a certain operational maturity before I'm able to deploy an agent? And the answer is no. For example, there are the agents you were talking before, like the role-based agents. This is straightforward. For example, you can ask an agent to archive all the content that has not been seen in the last 90 days, for example. Really easy. But if you want agents to recommend the next best actions in complex deals, or you want them to really guide the seller on the next steps, that requires clean data, aligned processes and methodologies, and shared definition. So I would say the barrier is not the technical implementation, is more like the operational discipline, the operational maturity of a company.
So you can implement them, but your maturity level is going to determine the sophistication of the agents that you could really implement. So if you're trying to implement a really sophisticated agent and you're not very mature, probably not going to work out. But if you're trying to get that muscle while you're getting mature, you can implement lower level ones to get the feel for how to do it and take on certain use cases and then grow with your maturity.
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay. So like, you've obviously done a lot of work on these with clients. Like, how do you help them? And you talked a little bit about the base foundation of data, how you're working with them to try to find their kind of North Star to value. Like, how do you work with customers to get value with them? Because it's kind of like, I saw this, that I've seen this in a couple different places where it gets kind of hilarious with people when they have these. And you mentioned it a little earlier. I can create an agent, so I create 500 of them. I saw this with like cadences with sales engagement software. Oh, great. I can create a cadence. So I have 8,000 of them that I send out to everybody. How do you work with customers to get value from these agents?
uh, and for those who know me, they know the answer. I always start with the outcome, not with the technology. So the first thing that I ask companies I'm working with is, what is it the outcome that you want to achieve? Is it pipeline velocity? Is it win rate? Is it ramp up time? Is it forecast accuracy? Let's be clear on what we want to achieve first. And then the second question is, once I know the North Star, I need to also know what is the performance gap that we are trying to close here. And then we design backward from that. And so the third point is, that's where context matters. And many AI tools that I see, they sit on top of a single workflow. But the real impact for an agent, especially when we're thinking about solving like complex deals, is when AI is anchored across the revenue motion. So everything the seller is using, and the context in which the seller and the buyer operate, which is made of, it's made of content, but it's also made of interactions like call recording, plays, deal signals, the methodology. So that's where having the right technology in this case really, really help. And it's really important that the agent doesn't have what we say isolated suggestion, but guidance that is grounded in how the team actually sells. So the formula is simple. The first thing is have a clear objective. The second thing is build a strong foundation and make sure that you have a context-rich platform. The more context, the better the agent works. And that's how you can move from experimentation to a place in which you can really drive the deal forward.
So it's really important what you said, because to do this right, if I understood the way that you built that out, the agent selection process does not happen until you've done those 3 steps and you know then you select the agent. So you don't buy the agent and then apply it to a problem. You define the problem or the thing you're trying to do and then identify the agent that can solve that problem.
Correct. Yes.
Got it. Exactly. And you see it the reverse so often, right? Because it's so easy to buy technology and say you have something rather than to fix a problem.
Absolutely. And that's how it's when it's the ability of removing that friction that brings the value, right? So it's really identifying what's in between what you want to achieve and the friction. And then you can think about what type of agent do I need to remove that type of friction.
Got it. Got it. Okay, so let's go. Highspot's actually released and had a big release around agents. So let's talk a little bit about that. So you just released the AI power agents. Like talk a little bit more about what these do.
So in Highspot's vision, AI is embedded everywhere. But the one agent that I'm the most excited about is the agent that we just launched, and it's the deal agent. And the reason why I like this agent is because, especially when I speak to CROs and like the go-to-market teams, it all comes down to the deal. And what the deal agent does, it deliver deal-specific insights that are based on the real context of the opportunity. It's not generic best practices. It's contextual intelligence. So, for example, as a seller, I can I look at my deal and I can ask the deal agent different things. So starting with what is the current stage of this deal? For example, especially if I'm a manager or if I'm a CRO, instead of going and asking this question to every single rep, what I can do is I just go to the deal agent and I can have this intel, or I can ask the deal agent who are the key stakeholder of this deal, or what are the topics that should be discussed in the next meetings. And the deal agent pulls from the CRM, call recordings, emails, digital room, content performance signals, basically all the different interaction that as a seller I have with my customer. And it helps me not just reducing prep time, but it helps me looking at putting all these touch points together, and it ensures that my strategy, my methodology, my approach, it's consistent in every deal. And that's when AI really helps driving the right execution in the field and helps the seller also connecting the dots across different teams that are all working on the same deal with him or her.
A deal agent is that's a step. So that's more than an agent for Highspot. That's you stepping into a different part of the deal cycle than you typically step into. Am I reading that right?
Um, it's so it connects structured and unstructured data. And this is the real power, I would say, of this agent, helping the seller really strategize and putting together like the actions with the right approach to move the deal forward. So it's a big evolution in the way like Highspot has built agents. Yes.
For sure. For sure. Okay, so why don't we shift and learn a little bit more about you? So if we go back in time to when you were younger, did you ever see yourself in like the enablement world? Like you were global head of sales enablement at Vodafone. You did sales enablement at Deliveroo. Like, is this when you were a little kid? Is this the thing that you like? I'm going to do this when I grow up.
Absolutely not. I studied French and planned to become a teacher. But my mom was a teacher, and she did that job with big passion, and she loved it. And so I started loving it too. And in fact, the through line was always there. The curiosity about people, culture, helping others grow at their maximum potential. And what I can see is that this showed up across all of my career. As a seller, it was about my ability to listen to the customer. In leadership, I was really passionate about building strong teams. But so no, this wasn't my plan. But if I look back, I can see all the signals that got me where I am today.
Yeah. The signs were there. It's just the role may not have been understood for a younger kid at the time. All right. So here's another one. Like if I were to visit you like right after college graduation, what piece of advice would you give yourself?
I would repeat here the best advice I've ever received. And it was choose the path where your heart and mind align. In fact, in early in my career, I followed passion. Like that was my biggest driver, right? If I could do that again, I would combine passion with vision, because when passion and vision align, that's when your career really accelerates.
Yeah, it makes so much sense. And a lot of people will say, follow your passions. And that is like, there's a pragmatic element to this, whether you want there to be or not. So but there is a through way. There is a way through that is really amazing. And it seems like you followed that path. Thank you so much for joining. Really enjoyed talking with you as always. Thanks, Laura.
Yes, thank you very much, Seth.
And that wraps up another episode. Thank you for joining. For show notes and other episodes, visit us at innovativerevenueleader.ai. The Innovative Revenue Leader is sponsored by Sandler, a Trilliad company. Sandler provides top corporate sales and business development training while empowering sales professionals and leaders to master the craft of selling at all levels.